Hello. Good afternoon, everybody. It sure is a great time to be around as we're getting more and more familiar with immersive technologies, and they'll soon be really used to everybody. We're not going to consider them something expensive, something that we cannot get in our homes. They're going to be part of our lives very soon. And I've been working with immersive technologies for a couple of years now. And in my opinion, they are the perfect match of visual content and information technology, kind of like video games. If you take a step back and we look at the definition of information technology, we see that it's all about data and information. And moreover, it's how these two are transmitted to the user. Now, with visual media, back in the days, we had movie theaters. So the screen was a little far away. Then the television came, and we got closer to the screen. And we also got closer to the technology, because we all have a TV in our house. Today, we have smartphones, and I think it's amazing to think that everybody can take out our phone from their pockets and check out pretty much everything they want on the web. And today we have virtual reality. But, you know, we're still at the beginning of it. For sure, the screen got closer and closer and closer and closer. And now the screen is so close, and with augmented reality, the content moved back to the 3D space. And we can feel it, and we can move around it, and we can interact with it. But what hardware is out there? And is it all the same? There's so many headsets around. And in the past 4 years, so many hardware companies have tried to make the best solution to push forward what the technology is today. I'm going to try to categorize them a little bit today in my presentation. I think the first main distinction we can make is the difference of spatial knowledge with the technology. The main difference is experiences that only have 3 degrees of freedom and experiences that have 6 degrees of freedom. And when it comes to 3 degree of freedom experiences, we can have experiences like 360 videos or 360 experiences with pre-rendered content. But they don't feel real natural, because in real life, we're used to move our head a little bit every second of our life to understand better the world, to get the spatial perception, to get 3D audio from natural audio sources. And with 6 degrees of freedom, the user can interact with the world and move around. And if it's CG content, nowadays we can get pretty close to what the actual world look like with photorealistic content by recreating the whole thing. Or we can also have what they're called volumetric videos. And I think they're so interesting, and they gather so much data. And I think we're going to see them more and more in the next coming years. Spatial tracking used to be done only by placing other devices in the space, and the problem with that is that you needed to have external devices, and so you were bound to how much they could be far apart from each other. Newer headsets do what's called inside tracking, and it's so much better. They place little cameras on the headset, and the whole knowledge of the 3D space is done by looking at the world, processing the image, and getting back to the headset, the position. Another category that I think it's important to make between headset is where the processing power is done. And in headset like the Oculus Go, which is a standalone headset, all the processing, all the graphics, all the positional information is done in the headset itself. And this is the evolution of what it used to be the mobile-powered virtual reality, where you had the mobile phones put inside the little headset. And the other category is tethered virtual reality, which is a lot more immersive because the space is tracked and the processing is done on really high expensive graphic cards that are stored in the computers. The problem with this so far is, of course, the cable. But today we have a sort of evolution of the standalone headset with the add of positional tracking, space tracking, and they feel awesome. I don't know how many of you have tried the Oculus Quest, which came out really like a month ago. It feels so good to just put on a headset and go. And this is what the future of technology is going to look like. I think that the only lack of this is, of course, the processing power, which was done by the graphic cards in the computers. And maybe 5G in the coming years will help us out with this. What about augmented reality? Well, right now we have what's called handheld augmented reality, which is done by taking out your phone and opening the camera, looking around, and there's 3D content placed on the actual world. What I found really fascinating about this, and not many people know it or think about it, is that every one of us has a phone in his pocket. And it's amazing how many people can enjoy augmented reality today with this. And companies like Facebook are working really hard towards the diffusion of augmented reality by creating a framework like Spark AR, which is a tool that you can just you can create effects for augmented reality effects, and you don't need to download an app. You can just click on a link, and the camera opens up inside the Facebook app, and then you can enjoy the content. Then augmented reality, of course, can also be achieved by the use of an augmented reality headset, like the HoloLens or Magic Clip. And what's great about this is that your hands are free. And in Uqido, we've been working with Industry 4.0 for a while now. And the main problem with not being able to is that the operators need to have their hands free to do their job. And I've been seeing in these past years so many names and adjectives to call what we know is VR and AR. And it's always confusing to me. Actually, 2 years ago, I had to make a research about understanding what the difference was between mixed reality, augmented reality, alternative reality, extended reality, hybrid reality. There's so many realities, and this is hurting our business. This is hurting the technology because it's confusing to developers. Think about people who are not familiar with these technologies. They have no clue of what this is. To me, it all comes down to this. Actually, it's more like this, and I do not know why some companies need to create other terms to define this. I think it's all about either the content is entirely virtual with VR, or you have a camera or lens or something like that, and then there's 3D content placed on it. But virtual reality and augmented reality are new medias, and Each media has its own rules. So since you want to tell a story to convey some information to who's trying your experience, you need to know the rules of augmented reality to tell that story. With movies and videos, it's much simpler, I guess, because you already know when stuff is going to happen. You already know that at that certain point, the two actors of your movie are going to do something. And that gives you a powerful information to work with your story and the storytelling you want to create. Because you can do stuff like create anticipation, and you can see if that anticipation is satisfied or not. Actually, my presentation today is a linear content to you because you have no interaction whatsoever with my presentation. So I can do whatever I want. And you know what? I know what the next slide is, so I can start, I can talk for 5 minutes about the next slide, so you get all pumped up, and then maybe, I don't know, it will suck, but then I created that feeling to you. And so yeah, but I'm not going to do that. And with virtual reality, we're talking about non-linear media. And a non-linear media means that the user has power on the storytelling. The user makes choices. And so what you're creating should respond to the user's choices. This is one of the latest episodes of Black Mirror. I don't know if you have watched, how many of you have watched. And this is part of what the scheme looked like. Some guy made reverse engineering to figure out all the possible storylines that were up there. And what you want to do is trying to get the user where you want at the end, because still you want to convey a message. You don't want the user to be confused. And in linear media, there's a saying that's show, don't tell. That means that the information about the story should not be told to the user directly. It should pass through the image that he's seeing, okay? With nonlinear media, this is different. And this is the knowledge that comes from the video game part of virtual reality. That says turns into play, do not show. And when we develop virtual reality experience, we always want to think about the fact that the user should be guided into discovering something. But we never want to tell directly the user that, because the maximum point of attention is reached when the maximum amount of activity the user is doing. And by just playing with the experience you created and just finding by yourself stuff, then you're going to learn much more. So the most important thing about these tools is interaction. It's what makes them different from linear medias. And it's really important to create this interaction in your experience and guide the user to understand what you want what you want them to know. It's kind of like a straight line, where in the middle we could make the definition of sort of semi-linear in between category. And to me, those are represented by 360 video, where you still have a video, but each time you watch it, the user can decide where to look. And it's up to you, again, to guide him by using context and direction and tell him where to look where you want him. So when you create virtual reality experience and you have a message to convey, it's really important that you choose the right way to tell the story and the right hardware. And if you do that, you will have the people immersed in your environment. The experience is going to be believable, and that way the message will be conveyed to the user. So now, I said that virtual reality is a visual media, but it's not just about that. Audio comes in play a lot, and we have 2 of our senses involved. There's probably more that we have not considered too much, and That's because they're really hard to achieve nowadays. For example, our nose is not that influenced all the time, and that's probably because it's really hard to recreate smell, and it's really hard to take it away. When it comes to audio and video, you can turn it on and off and have a 0 or a 1 of the presence of it, but with smell, you cannot. Even though smell is great, because I don't know if you ever smelled something that you haven't smelled for many years, and that feeling gets you right back to that situation because our memory is so strong related to smell. And I've seen a few prototypes and products. This is a real thing. This is not a fake image. I haven't tried yet. I'm actually really curious about it, and we'll see if it's going to spread out throughout our experiences. And there's another sense that is more used, but not in this way, at least. This is a picture from our experience that we developed in Uqido. It's called The Edge, and you can try it in the courtyard if you want. And usually people think about touch as this thing you do with your hands. But touch goes through the whole skin. And so we wanted to have touch in our experiences by using different part of our body. And so we placed physical objects in our experience, and people can step on things. And that's touch, and having the feel of having to move your body and feeling the ground and feeling things with your feet, stepping on them, it's great. And it's really immersive. Then other experience with the hands tracked with the sensor that are placed in front of the headset. They can also have the physical representation of a 3D space that matches perfectly the physical world, and they're so immersive, even objects. And then there's the Internet of Things, which today it's not so used as it should be, I think. And in the coming years, we're going to see so many use of the Internet of Things with augmented reality, and this is what it could look like. And can you see how natural the interaction is? Because we can all do this. This is so natural, and this is what the future of immersive technology combined with other technologies is going to be. Talking about the future, because I wanted to talk about today of the extended reality of today, but to do so, I wanted to look back, and we did a little bit, and I want to give a little bit of idea of what I think of the future could be. And if you talk to people from around the world, I'm sure there's going to be a lot of people that may think that the future could be a really bad and isolated and robots and the apocalypse. I don't know what movie you're into. And it's great for movies. And maybe some of them will turn out like this. I don't know, maybe some people. But it's not about the technology, it's about how you use them, again. So it's our responsibility to use them in a smart way, in a useful way, to what the real world needs are. And what I think that right now the problem of virtual reality is, it's a really intimate experience, meaning that when you put a headset on, you're so isolated. And that's what's cool about it, because you're so immersed into a different world that you don't have any connection to the place you are in that moment. And the problem is that we cannot work together if we are all isolated. I think that virtual reality needs to be more social. And it's the technology, but it's not just that. It's also a cultural thing. And we could be next to each other in a room, but we could also be next to each other and being in a totally different part of the world. Doing virtual meetings, doing virtual work together. And in order to achieve that, there are more steps that we have to take in the technology itself, though. Because in order to have this feeling to be natural, the representation of ourselves should be human. And today we have technologies that are moving forward. This is an app that lets you create the 3D mesh of your face by just using photogrammetry techniques, and it works on your phone. And Facebook is definitely working on this idea of bringing a social network to the point of where we all have an asset in our house, and then we connect to each other by going to virtual places. And I want to finish by talking about the future of augmented reality. And I truly believe this, and I've been saying it for a while now, but the more and more that we keep going forward into the development of technology and the culture behind it, I truly believe it. I think the future of augmented reality is this. And that means that we're all going to take our phones from our pocket, throw it in the trash, and the information that we can get from our phones, it's not going to be there anymore. It's going to be in the actual world, and we are going to interact with it with smart glasses, with virtual augmented reality headset, which they're not ready today, and they won't be ready in the next 5 years or so, but we're getting there. And I'm pretty excited about it. Thank you.